welcome in. This is PMNS's 2016 NCAA Bracket Special. I'm Bill Roll, and this is Chris Jolly. Of course, you know him as the CEO and founder of PMNS. I do, of course, men's play-by-play for George Mason University and also work for 106.7 The Fan in Washington, D.C. We're going to go through over the next, half hour or so, everything you need to know about the tournament brackets, some upset picks, our Final Four, some things that may help you in your bracket at your office. The nice thing is you've got until noon on Thursday to take in all this information, sit down, and then lose to the secretary anyway because she's just going to make picks, and it's not going to matter. But the nice thing is, Chris, and again, if you're not in a pool, if you're in a pool that makes you pick Tuesday and Wednesday games, get out of that pool. That's pointless. Nobody cares about the 16 versus 16 to get stomped by one. And quite frankly, the 2-11 games you shouldn't have to pick either.
You shouldn't have to pick them, although I got to tell you, my first instincts are usually the better ones. As I process information for 2 days, I tend to second guess myself and then screw up. But we all should probably just go through our brackets with the higher seeds anyway. We just want to be interesting. And if you can hit that upset pick, even if you lose the pool, and you can go out and you can say, I told you, I knew Stony Brook was going to beat Kentucky. I knew it. If you can say that, it's some solace, even though you lose 10 to 15 bucks in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Now, we'll go through and give you our Final Four picks. We'll give you region by region some games to watch, some upsets. Obviously, we're not going to take a lot of time, analyzing whether or not, Kansas is going to struggle with they're not going to. They're going to win. All the number ones are going to win that first round. It's not going to be the year that a 16 finally beats a 1. But we'll give you some ideas of some of the other tough matchups, maybe especially round of 32 matchups that would be very intriguing.
Very good ones that round.
And we'll also get to our Final Four picks as well. But let's talk about that selection show on Sunday. A lot of people really upset with CBS, and it was amazing because the bracket ended up leaking early because all you saw on social media, Twitter, and everybody was people complaining about how long it was taking for the brackets to come out.
Yeah, I don't know who did it, Edward Snowden, whoever is responsible. I mean, he's a patriot. He is a patriot to leak that bracket because right around 6:45 or whenever it happened, I had enough. I had enough of that show. I want to know who's in the tournament. Then I'll listen to an hour. I'll even listen to an hour of you guys talking about it. I want to know who's in the tournament first.
Yeah, I think CBS made the mistake of coming on the air at 5:30, which, again, they made it 2 hours long.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know. Like, literally, there were some things. I looked up the time, and it still said 6 o'clock because people just assumed it was 6 o'clock.
The huge mistake they made, first off, I love Charles Barkley. I don't love Charles Barkley in college basketball because these guys spend all their time, for the most part, watching the NBA.
Right.
I'm not sure how much they're actually watching those college basketball games. I don't blame them for that. It's not their job. They're the TNT NBA guys. I don't love having Barkley pick the South region trying to do the touch screen, which he couldn't figure out, before the rest of the bracket has come out.
Right.
That was a problem. To me, if I'm working for CBS television, I'm doing 5:30 to 6. Who your top seeds are probably going to be, the speculation on who's going to be the number 1 seeds, which would have been great, especially when Michigan State didn't get a top seed. Everybody expected them to. Talk about all the teams on the bubble. From 6 to 6:30, you get that bracket out.
Right.
You get that bracket out, and then from 6:30 to 7:30, take the last hour to do all your analysis and have Barkley not know how to do a touchdown.
Absolutely. I mean, I like Charles Barkley too, but I don't want his idle banter when we're still 25% through the bracket, and we've just had the regular CBS guys give us their opinions.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I mean, just run the show more efficiently, and I'll have a chance to hang in there for 2 hours at least. But the whole thing to me just felt like a LeBron announcement special or something, I need gratification pretty quickly before I get endless analysis.
The other problem is, and this is just minutia probably, but it was annoying to me, you knew UVA, you knew North Carolina were number 1 seeds. They're both in the ACC. When they're going through the brackets, and the first time an ACC at-large team came up, they said, oh, there's the first team we've seen from the... No, it's not. You already
Right.
had two number
Right.
ones.
Right.
We know the two other teams are in from the ACC. They're not the first ACC team in.
Right, and
so that was annoying.
Yeah, that was annoying, and we complained about it as fans how the show went.
Right.
Can you imagine being an actual bubble team on that last region, waiting, seeing a leaked bracket, not sure if that was a correct leaked bracket.
Right.
You know, I mean, I hope it happens every year now. Somebody leaks the bracket. I mean, that must have been just terrible for some of these bubble teams like Monmouth or, you know, whoever.
Yeah, to find out on Twitter that you're not in. Yeah. Disappointing. Well, let's talk about that. Monmouth, a team that didn't get in. St. Bonaventure out of the Atlantic 10, a team that didn't get in. Were they more deserving than Michigan, than Vanderbilt, than, Tulane, teams like that got in that shouldn't have gotten in?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I look at Monmouth and St. Bonaventure as the two teams that absolutely should have gotten in. I look at South Carolina as well, who could make the case. I don't think they clearly deserved it over some of those teams.
Right.
But South Carolina, I believe, beat Tulsa on a neutral floor. Monmouth beat Notre Dame and USC on a neutral floor in addition to their normal thing. I mean, it just felt like a year where the big conferences just, got their usual push from the committee. I mean, and that was one of the things too, the long show and the questionable decisions that I haven't seen them this questionable in a long time. I would say this is in this century. This was, if not the most questionable, one of the most questionable.
It's almost a complete reversal of 10 years ago in 06,
right,
when all the question was, well, why is George Mason and why Wichita State, why all these, why the mid-major teams, and it ended up being that those teams actually belong. Now it's gone the opposite. It's, well, why weren't these other smaller teams not in the field as opposed to these big teams that have no business being in? And you look at RPI, and I mean, RPI isn't the end-all, be-all by any stretch. But when you see a team with a 70 RPI, I mean, that was unfathomable years ago to think that if you were in 70, you were done, you were finished, there's no chance. They're a 70 plus. Bonaventure's at 29. Bonaventure doesn't get in.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange. Are we going away from a shift? Because I know some coaches have complained recently about how it's kind of a scam, RPI, how you can manipulate it so you can get up there. I know William and Mary was a top 60 RPI team this year. I don't know. I don't know if it's a fundamental shift, but it sure seems an RPI of 29 or 30, whatever St. Bonnie was, compared to 70. I mean, that's a significant difference.
Right.
And I know Syracuse beat St. Bonaventure early in the year. Guess where that game was played? It was played at Syracuse.
Right.
And it was like the third game of the year. So if you're going to use that as a rationale, I mean, I don't know. But the teams are in. The funny part is I know one of them that really doesn't belong in the tournament but got in. One of them's going to make a little mini run, I'm sure.
It always happens.
Yeah, and gets to around to 16 because they're inspired now. But yeah, I was just, I just thought the committee didn't do a very good job this year.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's only one time in NCAA history that all four number ones have made it to the Final Four. That's not happening this year, at least in my opinion. I think you can make an argument for 8, 10, maybe even 12 teams that could legitimately make a run to the Final Four. So let's go ahead and start in the South region. Our first one to look at here, going in your top left quadrant. That's the region where Kansas is your number one seed. And you've got some quality teams in there, but teams that have struggled at times this year. Maryland is in there as the number 5 seed. You've got Cal in there as the 4 seed. Your 2 seed there is Villanova. Miami is your 3. So that's your top 5 seeds. History will tell you that it's only going to be one of those 5 that probably advance and go on to the Final Four. Is there somebody, though, in that first round that you're looking at that you think could pull off an upset that may take out one of those top 5 seeds?
Well, I think both Maryland and California are susceptible. I mean, Maryland a little less so than California. Hawaii is a very good team. But the funny part of that, and what makes it fun to fill out your bracket is, I think whoever gets if California and Maryland come through to face Kansas in I guess the third round,
the Sweet 16 round,
now the Sweet 16. I think California has 2 top 10 NBA picks if they come out this year. Maryland, Diamond Stone is a
Right.
first round talent, a freshman. You know, you have Melo Trimble. The talent is there to beat Kansas. Kansas and North Carolina are the favorites in this tournament, but Kansas is in a very dangerous bracket to me. It's just who is going to show up. In the bottom half of the bracket, there are some very solid teams that can also take out Kansas, I think.
See, I think you make a great point with Cal and their two freshmen, but here's the problem. They're not going to get a chance to get to Kansas. I got Hawaii taking them out in the first round
you can
because
see it.
of that.
Yeah.
And I also think that Hawaii just does a much better job on offense. California struggled all through the year. They had to make the late surge late during the Pac-12 season. I like Hawaii to pull off the 12-5 up and should be the 13-4 upset in that region. But this to me is all about who's going to get to the regional final. Kansas is going to be able to get through Maryland, even though I think it'll be a tough game, a little bit tougher than most of the Jayhawk fans think. The bottom half of the bracket's a lot of fun. I got Wichita State actually knocking off Arizona. I don't think that's that much of an upset the way the Shockers play defense. And then it's going to be Miami, Villanova for the right to play Kansas. Who do you like in the bottom side of the bracket?
Well, the bottom side of the bracket's got a lot more stability to it, I think. I mean, Miami is a veteran, stable team that can beat you inside and out. Arizona is a talented, stable team that can beat you. Wichita State, would anybody be surprised if Wichita State made a run? With the guards they have, the experience and coaching they have, they could easily come out of that game. But that game is with Vanderbilt, which is a team kind of like California, you know, that was underachieved a little during the regular season, but is flush with talent. Villanova, I'm not seeing it this year with Villanova. Now they
struggle every year in the tournament. Every year they seem to get beat by somebody that shouldn't beat them.
They haven't made a run since I think it's 2009. They haven't made the Sweet 16,
right.
round of 32, whatever it is, since I think it's 16. Since 2009, and I mean they've got the talent this year. If they hadn't have lost to Seton Hall, they would have been a number 1 seed in this tournament. I don't know what this committee, but they should have been a number 1 seed. I just don't see them getting it done this year, and they got a tough. Iowa's been terrible of late as the number 7 seed, but they can be a dangerous team as well. Very veteran team. I like to come out of the bottom half of the bracket. I agree with you. I think Kansas will I think they'll be tested by probably either California or Maryland. But I like Miami to come out of the bottom of that bracket. What I like about them is just their balance, their coaching, and their veteran experience. And they've only been in the tournament, I think, once in the last 4 years. And they lost to Marquette, I think, in the Sweet 16.
With injuries with that team, too.
Exactly. But I think it just kind of feels like Jim Larrañaga might be his big chance to really make a run. So we'll see.
Kansas, we both have Kansas and Miami in the regional final. We'll get back to who wins that region after we go through the rest of them. Let's drop down to the West now. That's where I think the weakest number 1 seed is, and what I thought should have been Michigan State number 1 seed here. Oregon is the number 1 there. You've got Buddy Hield in Oklahoma, probably the National Player of the Year. They're at the number 2 seed. Texas A&M, very dangerous. A lot of people don't know about Texas A&M. They're the number 3. At the 4 spot, you've got Duke, which I think is obviously on the body of work. I don't think Duke is very strong, number 4 seed. And then Baylor is your number 5. With that group, you look up and down the bracket, is there any one team outside of those 5 that jumps out and you say, hey, you know what, this team could be the team that makes the run to the Sweet 16?
I don't think outside of those teams there's many. The one team I would highlight below the top 5 to possibly make a run is St. Joseph's.
Yes.
They were underseeded as a number 8. They're the A10 tournament champions. They've got a lot of talent. DeAndre Bembry, if you've never seen him play, he's a fantastic team. They were underseeded at 8. I think they can beat Oregon and make a run. Now, that's the only team really that I see below the top 5 that I think can make a run to the Elite 8, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've actually got St. Joe's knocking off Oregon in that 8-1 matchup because they'll beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati's very good. The problem with Cincinnati is they haven't seen guys like Bembry, guys like Isaiah Miles, that
Right.
1-2 punch. St. Joe's does not turn the ball over. That's one of their staples. They just don't give you extra opportunities. I think Cincinnati needs teams to make mistakes in order to get wins. I don't think St. Joe's is going to do that.
Well, and they just played a 9 overtime game, I think, in the tournament. So
right, yeah,
they're
exactly.
still probably tired.
The other team that I think, and this is another one of those upsets that you may want to look at depending on how you feel about it, Northern Iowa. Kind of under the radar all year long. They beat North Carolina earlier in the year. North Carolina was a little banged up. It was in Northern Iowa, that whole thing. And then they kind of struggled through December. They started to get it going here late. They had victories over Wichita State. Great tournament final for the Missouri Valley when they won on the West Washpun jumper at the buzzer. They are a team, seniors at the guard position. They're going to be able to handle Texas in the first round. They've played Virginia Commonwealth the last few years. They know what Shaka Smart and the mini havoc that he's using in Texas is all about. VCU's also a little banged up. Their starting center. It's only going to maybe go about 20 minutes. I like Northern Iowa to upset number 6 Texas.
I agree. I don't think they can get past Texas A&M if they do. But for a first-round upset, I would not be surprised at all to see. Texas is really a year ahead of schedule almost.
Agreed.
I mean, they've played well, and they've been capable. Certainly deserve their bid. But they're really not that great a team yet. I mean, they haven't fully embraced Shaka Smart's system yet. Northern Iowa is a veteran, as you mentioned. They've got guys that can shoot. I could easily see Northern Iowa. In fact, I would say that's a likely upset almost.
Also in that same bracket, interesting, Shaka Smart's old team, Virginia Commonwealth, ends up in the West region as well. They're the number 10 seed going up against Oregon State. I know talking to you before we did the video, you really like that matchup between those two teams, the styles that they're both going to bring.
It's a great matchup. Generally, when I look at how VCU can be successful against teams, I look at the other team's guards. Does the other team have capable guards? Because if you don't have capable guards against VCU that can dictate the pace, hang on to the ball, you're in trouble. Well, Oregon State is Gary Payton, second, third, whatever he is,
right.
Fourth. He's a capable guard. He's a very capable senior guard, and I think he can dictate the pace enough where Oregon State can win a low-scoring game, but wouldn't be surprised at all if VCU won by 15.
Yeah,
So,
I've got VCU moving on in that bracket, but again, I think once they hit Oklahoma and Buddy Hield, he and his teammates are able to do the same thing that VCU does as far as getting up and down.
Right.
They do it better.
Nobody
So
beats Oklahoma, I think, in the bottom half.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got Oklahoma on the top side. Once Oregon's out, then it's wide open. Duke, I think, will do enough to get by UNC Wilmington, although that might end up being closer than a lot of people think. Kevin Keats has done a good job in just his second or third year down there after coming over as an assistant from Louisville. But Baylor, to me, is better than either one of those teams. Baylor rolls on in, to my opinion, to the Final 8. Baylor, Oklahoma is my regional final. What do you have on that
I
side?
agree. I agree completely with that, Baylor and Oklahoma. Duke is always the most fascinating debate of any tournament. Are they going to make their deep run, or are they going to lose to, Morehead State a few years ago? The whole year to me has felt like a Duke loses early year to me. Their depth is limited, and against a team like Baylor, that's going to be tough because Baylor has incredible athletes. They get up and down the floor. I don't see Duke advancing past Baylor. So, but again, which kind of year is it for Duke?
Yeah, the only way that they beat Baylor is if they get all those guys hitting threes. They're going to have to hit probably double-digit threes, I think, and they're capable of doing that. We've seen it. But if they don't hit 10 to 12, 13 threes against Baylor, I'm not sure they have much of a chance.
I just think Duke, especially if Wilmington tests them, and, I just don't see Duke having the depth and the talent. They have the talent, however, the depth to beat some of these higher-seeded teams. If Baylor's a lower-seeded team, I don't even see them having the talent to beat Baylor, to be honest.
I'm not sure that's much of an upset. All right, let's go now up to the upper right portion of your bracket, the East region, where North Carolina is your number 2. Xavier, not surprisingly, considering their body of work, is a number 2, but a lot of people wouldn't think of the Musketeers as a traditional, powerhouse in there as a number 2 seed. You're number 3 there in that region. A very tough West Virginia team. You've got then Indiana and Kentucky Indiana number 5, Kentucky number 4. You want to talk about a lot of history there. That's a really, really good bracket.
Yeah, and I'll say this, as bad as the committee did with some things, they did a good job making possible intriguing matchups in the second round. Texas A&M might be in the second round. Those teams play each other. Indiana and Kentucky aren't playing each other now.
No, they refused. Calipari just broke off the series that they used to have, which
so
was a great series.
It was a great series, and now it's a border war, really. Divided by the Ohio River there, it's a border war. Now they're going to have to play if they both advance. However, I can see Chattanooga knocking off Indiana. Stony Brook won't. Oh, I want Stony Brook to win so bad because they're talented. They've got one of the best unknown players in the country. They're not going to beat Kentucky, unfortunately. So I would say, if Indiana can survive Chattanooga, that's the most intriguing second round matchup there is.
Sure.
I say second round, and they call it the third round now. That's another
round of 32. There you go.
That's the safest way to play it. So looking at that region, it's a blue blood region, especially in the top half of the region, appropriate since it's the East. North Carolina, at least, if they advance past, Florida Gulf Coast and Fairleigh Dickinson, which they probably will.
I'm going to go on a limb and say that they're going to get by.
If they advance, they face Southern Cal or Providence. Southern Cal's a year away. Young, another good rebound. Speaking of good rebuilding job out there, but they're a younger team. I think they're a year away. Providence has one of the best players in the country in Chris Dunn, and while they're not going to stop Carolina, that would be an intriguing second round matchup just to see.
I think Chris Dunn will give North Carolina nightmares. The problem is they don't have any type of depth up front to deal with Isaiah Hicks and Bryce Johnson. On and on and on. Carolina just rolls out 5 guys that are all 6'8" or bigger.
Right.
You're going to wear down a team like Providence, but Chris Dunn will be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be a nightmare for Marcus Page and those guys to chase around.
Absolutely. So who takes down Carolina in that bracket? We go to the bottom half. Do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, to me, this is Carolina all the way to the regional final. I think they get by Indiana. I have Indiana beating Kentucky. I know we differ there, that you like Kentucky to get by the Hoosiers in that round if they both survive the first round. On the bottom side, Xavier, to me, is good enough to get themselves to the regional final. I've got West Virginia actually losing to Notre Dame. I like West Virginia. They're a fun style to play. The problem is they foul way too much. Mm-hmm. They put teams, and they're deep enough that they can get away with it, but in an NCAA tournament, you can't foul that much and allow a team, and I've got them losing to Notre Dame. Notre Dame, too good, too athletic. To me, the ACC, I'm not going to say disrespected, they got 2 number 1s, but the top side of the ACC, as good as any conference in the country, I think they get by West Virginia, but I've got Xavier. I've got Xavier and UNC 1 and 2 again. Boring, it's chalk. But they're in the regional final in my mind.
Well, I think Xavier, I respect Xavier fully. If you haven't watched Xavier this year, they're very capable, extremely capable. They lost to Seton Hall in their conference title game, but they're a very capable team. They can't beat North Carolina, I don't think. Xavier, even as a number 2, they're not going to beat North Carolina.
They play the jump 1-3-1 defense. Well, I shouldn't call it jump. It's not.
No, it's an actual defense.
It's an actual defense. I shouldn't call it jump.
I'm a big 1-3-1 fan. You're seeing it a lot in the tournament now. Oregon State, some of these teams.
They do a little bit different 1-3-1. That's why I say jump, because it's not as traditional 1-3-1. So that may give Carolina some problems. The difficulty is Carolina will be able to offensive rebound against the 1-3-1. That's what will kill the Musketeers in that matchup, is because Carolina's bigs are just going to have a field day. It's going to be Dunk City down underneath.
Well, I don't even have them getting that far.
Okay.
But I agree with your assessment completely. I see West Virginia. West Virginia is a very boom or bust team. And like you mentioned, it kind of depends on some games just how the referees call the game. So we'll see. But West Virginia can play stifling defense. I can see them giving Carolina trouble. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, have them advance to the regional final versus North Carolina.
All right, let's walk down now to the Midwest region, the region of death as far as UVA is concerned.
This is my favorite topic.
They're the number 1 seed there. In the last 2 years, their nemesis that has taken them out of the NCAA tournament, Michigan State, UVA, all excited about getting number 1 seed, and what happens? The committee has a sense of humor, and they go, congratulations, number 1 seed. get by your arch nemesis. Michigan State is the number 2 seed there. I think that's going to be tough for UVA. Utah is your number 3, Iowa State the number 4, and Purdue the number 5. Probably, if you look at it, 1 through 5, the weakest region in the NCAA tournament.
I would agree with that assessment. I like the Big 12 this year a lot. I mean, I think the Big 12, there are 4 conferences that got 7 teams in. Every year, after this first couple of games to the round of 16, there's a couple of conferences that have 1 or 2 left from them. The Big 12, I don't think that's going to happen to this year. They're strong. Iowa State is the dangerous team in that region and in UVA's top half of the bracket as well. If any team takes down UVA early, I think it's almost certainly Iowa State. Butler, you can see it. You can see them playing that slow game. But UVA is a little more up-tempo this year than they have in the past.
Yeah. Much more balanced.
Exactly. But, I mean, nobody would be particularly shocked if Butler got past their first-round matchup with Texas Tech and took down UVA, but I don't see it. I see UVA and Iowa State advancing to the round of 16 there, and UVA barely escaping a dangerous Iowa State team.
In the lower half of the bracket, Gonzaga, I think, is one of those teams that they had to win their way in, but they've been there now 18 straight years. And I know, look, that means the freshmen of this team were born when this run started, which is amazing for a team that's not in a Power 5 conference. But they have experience. Their coach, Mark Few, has been through there. I think Gonzaga actually beats Seton Hall in that first-round matchup. But Utah, the last time that we saw Utah, well, Pac-12 tournament, let's be honest, it wasn't exactly the best of times for Utah in that tournament there. So we'll take Utah to beat Fresno State, and they're going to beat Gonzaga as well. But then they lose to Michigan State. I've got Dayton at the bottom taking out Syracuse, who doesn't deserve to be there.
Right.
Michigan State, UVA, once again in the regional final.
Yeah, the thing about Michigan State, and God, I hope so, because the media, as much as I make fun of the media, as I guess I am the media part of it now, but whatever. I love stories like this. I mean, in Michigan State, where they got hosed, Michigan State fans were furious they didn't get a number 1.
And they should have been a number 1.
They absolutely should have been a number 1, even over UVA, you could argue. Now, I would have put them where Oregon was,
yes,
as you said, but Michigan State did get a little more dangerous matchup as that, too, with probably Dayton, I would argue.
Yeah, the only thing is Dayton has been so suspect here down the stretch.
Right.
I love Scoochie Smith, Pollard, their big man down low. They've got a lot of guys that can fill it up. I don't think that they're good enough to really handle. The problem with Dayton, again, they can beat Michigan State if they hit 15 threes.
Right.
How are they going to rebound
with
Michigan State? That's going to be their problem.
I would agree. I think Michigan State survives, but as the number 2, I see Dayton as a much more dangerous opponent than Butler or Texas Tech, which they could have been if they were the number 1 seed. But I love that the committee put these 2 in the same region together, because that's a story, man. Psychologically, if you've ever coached sports, if you coach basketball at like a 5th grade level, you know that once a team loses to another team, it's psychological. Well, that goes all the way through the NBA. It's what people don't realize. They're less afraid. They come back better as they get older after a loss. But man, Michigan State is in their heads. I wrote a big article on it last year. I would love to see Michigan State and UVA again. That's the thing I'm most excited for, maybe for the tournament. Because if UVA does finally get to the Final Four for the first time since Ralph Sampson, it'll be them overcoming their nemesis from the last 2 tournaments. That would be a great story, but I love domination even more. I want to see Michigan State beat them again, actually.
So again, we got chalk basically in the Midwest, the number 1 and the number 2. We had that in the East, the number 1 and number 2.
Yeah, I think Utah is a grinded-out team that I think will get to the game.
I just can't get past them getting beat by 31 in their conference final.
They're a grinded-out team.
Crushed.
That happens if they get up and down too much and they don't play their style. They've got one of the best big men in the country. If they can't play that way, they can get blown out. However, they're a team kind of like Wisconsin in previous years, that if they play the way they need to play, they can grind you out and they can go far. I see them losing to Michigan State, though. So
All right, let's go back to the South. We had Kansas and Miami in the regional final there. Who moves on to Houston and representing the South in the Final Four?
Well, originally I made this pick just because I was sick of, hyping the Big 12 teams so much. So I'm going with Miami because why not? They're experienced, they're deep. I think it might be, that's Jim Larinaga.
He agrees with you.
Yeah, I honestly think they've got a good chance. Now their run to the Final Four is a difficult one, but I think they will knock off Kansas.
I've got the same thing. I think Miami
Crazy.
upsets Kansas and goes to the Final Four. In the West, great matchup I have in the regional final. Baylor, after Oregon gets knocked out by St. Joe's in my bracket, taking on Oklahoma. You want to talk about a nice border war, big-time battle. Buddy Hield taking on the neon green, yellow, whatever that ugly color is that they wear. Oklahoma and Baylor in my regional final. Who goes to the Final Four out of the West?
I love Oklahoma, and I do love the Big 12 this year. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see Kansas and Oklahoma advance and play each other in the Final Four. But I'm going with Oklahoma here. They got, the player of the year, Buddy, who scores 25 a game. But a lot of people don't know. They have a couple other seniors on that team that are very capable as well. I think this is their year. I wouldn't be surprised if they go all the way.
All right, so we got Oklahoma, Miami on that side of the bracket. In the East, I have North Carolina and Xavier in the regional final. I like the Tar Heels again, as I said earlier, against that 1-3-1 defense. I think they're going to be able to rebound. They'll move on. You've got North Carolina and West Virginia.
West Virginia, I think it'll be a grinded out game, but Carolina just have too much there. The thing about Carolina now is they're playing defense and they're shooting from outside now. And I just don't see anyone beating them if that's the case.
All right, we move down to the Midwest, UVA, Michigan State. We both have the chalk. This is, I think, your favorite regional final. So go ahead. Does UVA finally slay the dragon and get to the Final Four?
No! They're psychologically gone after this. They can't even look at that shade of green from this time on. Michigan State beats UVA again. Michigan State advanced.
Yeah, I've got Michigan State and Valentine going on to the Final Four as well. So oddly enough, we ended up with the same Final Four. Didn't even realize it as we made our picks separate from each other. Didn't even talk about it. We called it the same Final Four.
It's crazy.
So Miami, Oklahoma, in that side of the bracket, who gets on to the final?
Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of my teams this year. They feel special to me this year. And I think Miami, that's as far as they can go. They have a deep and talented team, but they don't have a championship caliber team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Oklahoma beats them, much to the dismay of Jim Larinaga's bobblehead sitting here with us. I think Miami gets there. I think it's another great story. Unfortunately for Coach Larinaga, it'll be his second trip and the second time he gets beat before he can advance on to the finals. On the other side, North Carolina, Michigan State. Blue blood. Talk about teams that are just year after year after year. It seems always one of them is in the Final Four. They're going to face off. Who gets the victory there to take on Oklahoma in the national championship?
I like North Carolina. As much as I love Michigan State, who can play any which way, grind you out, and has the best coach, in my opinion, tournament coach in the country, in Tom Izzo. And don't be upset, Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett's dad, Dick, at Wisconsin was dominated by these guys too, so it's no big deal. But I like North Carolina. I just feel like they've got too much. They're too deep and too talented for even Michigan State, who is a deep, good defensive team. I like North Carolina to advance against Oklahoma.
Yeah, I like the Tar Heels as well. I think the wake-up call came at the Verizon Center here for the ACC tournament. They had been reading about all the press that said, look, these guys are talented, but they don't defend. They don't try to do these things. And all of a sudden, Carolina started to defend. The job they did on Malcolm Brogdon, particularly Marcus Page, in the finals was unbelievable. He took a career-high 22 shots in that contest. I think maybe 2 or 3, he didn't have a guy draped all over him with a hand in his face. If Carolina makes that commitment to defense, I don't know how anybody beats them, especially getting all the way to the finals. So
I agree. It's going to be interesting if he gets. We both have him versus Oklahoma, right? If he's guarding Buddy Hield,
it's going to be great. That's going to be a great matchup. Who wins back there? It's going to be on April 4th in Houston, North Carolina, Oklahoma. A fantastic final matchup. I think that would be a great culmination to what has been a wild college basketball season. Both these teams, I believe, ranked number 1 at some point during the year. Who ultimately ends up cutting down the nets in that one?
I'm going to go with Oklahoma. Rationale? Oh, you want rationale?
Jesus. Sure.
I'm way past rationale at this point. I'm just, using my guts here. Now, I mean, I like Oklahoma this year. I just feel like they're a special team. They're veteran. They've got a go-to guy that I think is going to produce no matter what throughout the tournament. And a lot of these teams, they're very hot and cold, but I think, I can see their guards disappearing or the defense. Oklahoma, I think, consistently will have enough to beat everybody in the tournament.
See, I'm going to go the opposite way. This is the first time we've differed at all. It's going to be number 3 for Roy Williams. He passes his mentor, Dean Smith, in total national titles there in North Carolina. I think they cut down the nets again, mainly because, again, the senior Marcus Page, the commitment to defense. And I think when you get to the national title game, they're going to have so much. We've mentioned it all throughout this conversation. The depth on the interior will eventually wear down Oklahoma. I think it'll be a fantastic game. I think Carolina ends up eventually winning something like 78-74, 78-72, something along those lines. It'll be a close game, but ultimately they're just going to have too much depth and strength and height down low for Oklahoma to handle. I think the Carolina Tar Heels to win national title number 3 for Roy Williams. And then everybody can ask if they're going to have to vacate the title because of all the scandal. That'll be the next thing.
It does smell like a Carolina year. It also might smell down there for other reasons. Trivia question for you, which I don't know the answer to, so we'll have to look up after we get off. Has Carolina and Duke ever won national titles back-to-back?
Didn't Duke win in 92 and then Carolina won in 93?
I think so.
I think that's right, yeah.
All right. Well, we're throwing out trivia where we don't know the answer to, but that sounds right.
Yeah, I believe that's right. Duke won in 92 and Carolina will then turn around and won. That was the famous Michigan Chris Webber timeout game in 93.
Right. So we're taking it back to the Leitner and to Bobby Hurley and to who was on that team? Donald Smith?
Donald Williams.
Scott
Cherry, of course.
Scott Cherry.
Played a big role in that game.
He did.
That was George Lynch.
George Lynch, of
and
course.
And all those guys that, back from the 93 team. So,
okay.
The weird thing is, before we wrap up, everybody always looks at the NCAA tournament and they always want to talk about all the scandals that surround different teams. Isn't it amazing that the biggest scandal going into the NCAA tournament has to do with the team from the Ivy League?
It's crazy. Yale's captain is not with the team, the number 12 seed, who I would, in normal circumstances, like to pull an upset. I just don't think they have the horses this year to even get past the first round. Yale's captain off the team, apparently accused of sexual assault. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if the kid did it, obviously.
Well, right, of course.
If the kid didn't do it, that's what's crazy. I was thinking this morning about these allegations of sexual assault. While there has to be some immediate repercussion, a lot of these kids, obviously the Duke lacrosse story and UVA rape case, come to light about, guilty until proven innocent here.
Well, yeah, I think that they definitely had to step in and do something immediately.
Absolutely.
The fact that they weren't able to expedite the situation where you could say, okay, we've got enough evidence that, you can't be around the team. We got to take care of this.
Right.
But Yale being so tight-lipped about everything, and I don't mean necessarily the team or the coaches, I mean the university itself.
Right.
Just not providing any information at all. And it just ties in with so many things we've seen here as of late where schools are being accused of kind of sweeping this stuff under the rug. It is fascinating that at Yale and an Ivy League school that you would think would be one of the open places, they're not talking about it at all. It's very, very strange.
There's that, and then on the flip side, you don't want to become a Duke, where you're throwing out stuff that turns out to not be true. So there's that on the flip side. But it's a crazy situation because if you're a kid from Yale getting to go to the NCAA tournament and you miss that experience, it's pretty much the experience of a lifetime that you can't have back. So, it's a crazy situation.
But it all gets underway, obviously, Tuesday and Wednesday for
tonight,
your
sort
first
of.
4,
Yeah, nobody really gets into that, though.
No, you watch the...
Because you can't skip work Tuesday night.
Right, can't skip work Tuesday or Wednesday night. But if it gets close, I'll tune in and watch because it's always fun to watch the buzzer beaters. But it all really gets underway noon on Thursday. The first 2 weeks of the tournament are the best 2 weeks. Obviously, you got all the games from noon to midnight Thursday and Friday, and then all day Saturday and Sunday. The next week, they get right down to it with the Sweet 16 and get into the Final Four. But again, I think it's going to be a heck of a tournament. I wouldn't be shocked. We have Miami, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Michigan State. Wouldn't shock me if we go 0 for 4 and none of those teams get to the Final Four this year.
It never shocks me any year. As I said, the intelligent thing to do with one of your brackets is probably just seed it almost the whole way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this does seem like a year where you said it. There are about 8 to 12 teams max that I think can win it all. But realistically, I mean, North Carolina, and we downgrade Kansas, but realistically, North Carolina and Kansas are the strong favorites, with Michigan State, UVA, Oregon, some of these other teams as strong possibilities. So
yeah, absolutely.
you just wonder. That's why they call it the madness. We don't know.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. For Chris Jolly, again, founder of PMNS.com, I'm Bill Rowland, and we hope you enjoyed our 2016 bracket look. We'll be back with more during the tournament, kind of keep you updated. We'll come back with a Final Four preview and go over our brackets, tell you how bad we did the next time. So enjoy the tournament.
Bye-bye.